It's the end of March, and if you're like most of our clients, you are in budget season. The end of the fiscal year for city, county, and state governments is typically June 30th. So we're coming up on that June 30th current fiscal year end and then starting the new fiscal year on July 1st. So what that means is you should be starting your planning for your digital scanning project to get budget and funds to get that project going. Here are a few things that need to happen to make this budget cycle, to make the project process work. First, you need to inventory your records. So if you're thinking about a digital conversion project, you need to know what you have so that you can take the next step, which is contacting companies, researching companies, and seeing who do I want to work with for this. But before you reach out to anyone, you want to know what kind of materials you have, how many, the different type of data that's on it. These are all questions you're going to get asked, so it's good to have a general inventory. It doesn't have to be perfect, just kind of a generalized ballpark inventory of the type of project you're going to work on. So let's say you have financial records. You work in a city department, you have a bunch of financial records you need scanned. At least knowing something like, I have about 75 banker's boxes of records in folders. That's a minimum good start to have, because if you contact a company and say, hey, I want to do something, and say, great, what do you have? How many boxes? And you go, I have no idea. Not that you can't figure it out with them, but it just slows down the process. Remember, it's already the end of March, so you want to be ahead of the game when you do start this planning process. As I mentioned earlier, you want to be researching a few companies. Don't just find one on Google and go with them. You can do that and contact companies you find on Google or through whatever search method you have, referrals, maybe other departments at your city, county, wherever agency you work at. Maybe they've worked with folks before, but get at least, do a little research, find at least 2 or 3 different companies so you can compare their services and what they're going to provide. So you don't just go in thinking, oh, this company told me it's going to be this price, this scope, that's it. You want to have a comparison. You should get similar project scopes and prices in general, but every company is going to have a little different way of doing things and how they're going to execute the project. So you want to have that comparison. Then, of course, you need to actually reach out to them and kind of interview those companies, ask them questions, see what questions they're asking you, and seeing how they're going to help you scope this project and get a scope created to submit for budgeting. And then once you get that scope of work created, like a proposal or a quote, that's when you can decide, okay, who do I actually want to go forward with? Because then when you do submit that internally for your budgeting, you're gonna have to say, this is the company I want to work with. So that research process, that interview process, that scoping process to make your project, getting the pricing, how it's gonna be done, so on and so forth, that's all part of this, what needs to happen to then submit for your budget and see what kind of funding you get. You might be thinking, it's March, it's too early to submit a budget for the next fiscal year. And I'm gonna say, no, it's not too early to submit for a project. The reason is because it takes a little bit of time to come up with these projects. You're not just buying a widget and saying, hey, I need this done, quickly put something together, send me a price, and I got a budget for it. We have folks ask us for that, but it's not the best way to go about it, because let's say you're working with us, we want to know to make sure that you're getting the best possible project, making sure it's done right for you and from our side. We want to have some discussions of, what exactly are we working with? Can we get a sample potentially? Can we come see it if it's viable? If maybe you're local, or we can get to you if it's the right type of project. We can sometimes go to your facility, fly out there, take a look at it. Can we do that? Scope a project, make sure we understand the nuances, so when you do submit for a budget, it actually is related to the project. You want to say, hey, just, you know what, I have a bunch of stuff, just throw it up the wall, see what I can get. What if you're under budget? You actually get money for it, maybe for the next fiscal year, but then it's half of what you need because we didn't have the ability to come look at it. We didn't have the time to discuss it with you because it was late May and you need to rush something. You had to put something in within the next week, and there was no time to really craft a scope and understand the project in how it really would come out. That's not what you want to happen. Or maybe you submit and it's a huge number because you're saying, hey, just double what you need to tell me. Just, I'm going to throw in for a huge budget. Hopefully we get some. If you submit too big of a number, maybe say, this is crazy. You're not going to need this much money. We're not going to give you budget. That's wild. Scanning something, 100 boxes, that's not $1 million. You're right. You want to make sure you're submitting the most accurate budget you can get. So you say, hey, I asked for this, I got it done in this, and we're golden. So March is not too early to start planning for and submitting a budget, because there's going to be some back and forth, some time to really craft a good scope of work that you will then submit for funding. Another reason to submit now, to craft your scope of work, submit for next fiscal year, is you might have residual funds that you didn't know about. So if it's March, you start crafting a project, let's say middle of May, you actually get something, or end of May, you get a project put together with a company, you did your research, you talked to a few, thought, I want to go with this company, let's say it's BMI, and you submit a scope of work, say, hey, here's what we want to do, I want to get some funding for this, thinking it'll be for July 1st fiscal year, the next fiscal year. You may hear from your procurement folks saying, there's actually maybe some general funds or some residual funds from this area that you can use now, and hey, your project's $50,000, we actually have that, you can just do it now. That would be great because now it's late April and maybe that project can be done before the fiscal year ends, so you can actually do it, use the funds for the current fiscal year, not even worry about the next fiscal year, because that's what the procurement folks like. They want to use the funds they have now and not have to worry about budgeting for next year, and they don't want to leave any leftover funds. They want to use them because that's what they budgeted for. So you may have residual funds you didn't even know about that you can use. So submitting early gives you a better chance of having that capability than just submitting, hey, it's middle of June, we submit, and oh, there was funds we had left over, and now there's not even time to use them. I will say, we have seen this time and time again. We've been in business for 66 years, work with government, and probably 80% of our client base is public agencies. We see it time and time again. Just last year, we had a very large client that was planning to pay for a certain part of the project in the new fiscal year, and they contacted us, said, hey, we have $100,000 of funds remaining. Can you come pick up some extra materials that we have and get it done before June 30th? And this was like June 1st or something. We said, absolutely. We picked it up, got it rolling, and we expended that money that they wanted to use that they had left over in the current fiscal year. So we've seen it happen. That's just one example. So submit early, have that project ready, and there may be extra funds you can use. And one last little piece that you may be thinking, even though I'm presenting this as, hey, March is a perfect time, you might even feel like you're a little early. Some folks think, hey, it's the end of March. Are we too late to start doing this? And the answer is, of course, no. Even if you think it's late and your department maybe does things, they wanted something done in January or February, they're used to having things submitted earlier, it's still not too late. It's better to put together your digital conversion scope, submit it, and potentially get the funding for it than to not do it all and think, great, not to wait an entire cycle to do this again. Get it submitted now because you never know. Even if you don't get funding for the next fiscal year, another project may fall through, or there may be those residual funds that come up you can still use. But you want to have that scope, that plan crafted, so when it comes time, you are ready to move forward. You're not scrambling to come up with something when funds do become available. All right, so that's what you need to do to start planning for the fiscal year, for budgeting. When you're looking for companies, there's some questions you would want to ask, and we have recommendations for that. There's actually a 3-part series. There are 5 questions in each video. Right here is going to be the link to the first video on vetting questions for scanning companies. Take a look. You can watch all 3, have some questions so you can be ready to talk to scanning companies. I'm also going to put a link to contact us to submit a quote in the description below. So make sure you click that to reach out to us and talk about your project. We can help craft that for you and get ready for budgeting cycle. Thank you for watching.